as you begin leading your church forward during this new season, whether it's a new year or whether it's a new ministry year when back to school comes up. Timing matters. When you do certain things matters. And I just want you to know, I'm a firm believer with over 30 years of ministry experience of leading in various sized churches. The timing of a new year and the timing of back to school, those two times are more important than any other times in the life of our church. Christmas and Easter are important, and there's going to be people who naturally come during those times. But the reason why I say timing matters with New Year and back to school is because it is at these times that people are thinking about redoing their habits, redoing how they're spending their time, redoing how they are going about their life. Back to school, parents are thinking about what new things what do they need to adjust in their rhythms so that their kids can be successful. They're evaluating these things because if you think about it, when we are trying to connect a family that's either that's lost or disconnected from God's church, they haven't been attending church, to have them begin using Saturday as a family day, as a sleep day, or as a hobby day, to then now give half of it to come to church. That's a major tweak in their rhythm. Now, I think it's worth it. Now, don't hear me pushing down on that and saying, well, how do we compete? No, I believe if a family will engage with the church family, that it will drastically change their life. But during back to school and New Year's time, people are thinking about what changes do I need to make in my habits and my rhythms. And so that's why as churches, we need to think more strategically than we do. It's a natural change point. People are naturally thinking about making changes. We don't have to kind of come in and interrupt their life. Like, they're naturally thinking about changes, and we can create momentum in the life of our church. I heard in a leadership video several years ago that, when you have momentum, everything is easier. And when you don't have momentum, it's like, man, can we go any slower? And so these natural change points become places where you can create and see momentum. And so I want to encourage you to think about these two times strategically in your leadership and in your church. Timing matters. Another way to break up with insanity is for you to begin expanding your mind and dreaming about what ifs. I love what if questions. I love sitting down with a blank piece of paper at my desk, and when I'm thinking about our groups, our connect groups, our Sunday school, and I'm like, what if, and I'm just able to dream. Those begin to expand your mind to the possibilities. Dreaming shapes our thinking. When we can begin to dream, when we can lead other people in our church to dream, I would encourage you to think about who are 2 or 3 people who have a lot of influence, whether good or bad influence, it doesn't matter. But when they speak, people listen, like the old E.F. Hutton commercials from a few decades ago now. When they speak, people listen. Go to lunch with them. Go to breakfast. Have a cup of coffee and say, what are like 3 things that you would dream about? Like what would be 3 big things God could do in the life of our church or in the life of our community? Ask them to be able to think. And so when we begin thinking about what ifs, and when we can lead our influencers to begin thinking about what ifs, and we can lead the people in our church to think about the what ifs, we begin to create the opportunity for us to change the actions of what happened. Remember our definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting different results. If we can begin dreaming, then we can begin opening the possibilities in our mind. What if questions create a place for collaboration? Somebody else may come up with an idea that's better than anything you got. And that's okay. Matter of fact, my job as a leader is not to be the smartest person in the room. My job is to make smart decisions. So if I can get good thinkers around the table and if I can ask good questions, then those possibilities begin to raise up and out. And I begin to have more opportunity as we begin thinking about what to do. One of the things that we've talked about on our podcast and in a couple of our articles on our blog is, as leaders, one of our first priorities is to define reality, to understand where we are. And we have to be able to define reality. We have to be able to have clarity on where we are before we can think about where we're going. But dreaming allows us to step outside and begin thinking about the possibilities of what could be. So I want you to know this. Don't miss this. When it comes to your church, it is God who builds the church. It is God who brings the increase. He calls us as shepherds, as pastors, as leaders to lead the people to grow spiritually in their personal discipleship. And then when we have the possibilities, like when we look around us and we see the people around us that aren't going to church, that are disconnected from God's church, then we have the opportunity to reach them and to grow numerically. We have the opportunity to overcome plateau and decline. So I want to encourage you to know without a shadow of a doubt that it is God who builds his church. But he uses us as leaders, and he uses the people in our church family in their everyday walk and in their discipleship to reach the people who are around us. And so with that being said, I want to be real clear. When you think about overcoming plateau and decline, and when you think about leading your church to grow and to become healthy, one of the things you've got to know at your core, as a leader, as a pastor, I measure everything. I do. I measure everything. But I settled a long time ago in my heart. God doesn't love me more when the metrics go up, and he doesn't love me less when the metrics go down. The metrics, the numbers, whatever you want to call it, they just help us know what to do. They show us areas of opportunity and possibility. They show us areas where we're actually expanding and we're reaching a population of people. It helps us know what to do. Your identity is never as a leader in your church statistics, but the statistics will help you know what to do next. You see, if your Sunday school or your groups, whatever you call them, if they are plateaued and declining, then you need to be able to think differently. Like, what are we doing here? I would suggest that one of the solutions to plateaued and declining groups, and I spent years as a discipleship pastor, as a minister of education, kind of in that second chair leader, playing or filling that role. One of the things you do when you have plateau and decline is you begin looking for the opportunities to start a new group. Starting new groups can help move that out of gridlock. And yes, I know nobody wants to start new groups. If people in your church, they're going to say, we don't want to start new groups. We don't have, people don't want to do it because they love their friends. They love the group that they're in. But I'm just telling you, if you're going to get your groups unstuck, one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to start something new. You're going to have to reach a new potential, maybe start a parents of teenagers class or find a population, a niche of people that you could start a group with. And that will begin to get your groups out of gridlock. If you're not baptizing people, then you've got to find a way to have more spiritual conversations. You can't, well, I guess you could force somebody to be baptized, but the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible teaches that we have spiritual conversations. And maybe one of the adjustments you have to make in your church, if as a church as a whole, you're not having spiritual conversations, and maybe one of the things you have to do as the pastor, as the church leader, is to really challenge your deacons and your connect group leaders, your Sunday school teachers, and yourself to take the lead and to say, for this season, we're going to hyper focus on how can we look for opportunities to share the gospel. You see, if we do the things the same way over and over and over again, and we expect different results, like if I want to see more people baptized, but I keep doing the same thing, I'm going to miss out on the fruit, both personally in my discipleship of stepping out in faith to have spiritual conversations, and to see the opportunity to people to respond to the gospel. That's God's plan, is using his people to share the good news of the gospel. Rarely do things change on their own. We're not going to drift to change. So we have to cast vision. We have to create clarity. We have to pray. And we have to lead by example. Pastor, you have to go first. You have to be able to stand up in front of people and say, you know what, I had a conversation down at the gas station the other day. Or I was in the park and I started a conversation. And then we began talking about spiritual things. And I began sharing how Jesus changed my life. We have to lead by example. You see, rarely, and I'll say this again, rarely do things change without intentionality towards a new future. So I want to encourage you to think through these things. Timing matters. And then begin dreaming about the what ifs. And then begin to move forward. Making the adjustments. Trying new things. If you try something and it crashes and burns, what's the worst thing that can happen? Most of the time, the worst thing that can happen is you find another way it doesn't work. I would rather do that than sit back, do the same thing over and over again, hoping that something different occurs. Let's identify these things. Let's dream. And let's lead change in our churches.